Hey, you're watching Gearwire.com. I'm Owen and we're here with Jim McGorman, who is a producer, multi-instrumentalist, musical director. Anything else?
Jack of all trades, really.
Jack of all trades?
Juggler.
A juggler.
Yes, I'm a juggler.
You see a lot of that on the street in LA. That's good.
You know, to keep alive in this business, you gotta juggle. You know, one day I'm a guitar player, one day I'm a keyboard player, next day I'm producer. That's how I've been able to survive out here.
So what were you first? Like, you know, how do you first kind of break into the business in LA?
Well, I moved out here, out to LA in the mid-90s, and I got an audition for an artist who was on Elektra Records. And she was looking for a keyboard player, and I went down and I listened to the record, and there weren't a ton of keyboards, but I did hear a lot of guitars. So I kind of learned the record on both, the few songs they asked me to do. And so when I went down the audition, I played a few on keyboard, and I said I didn't really hear a lot of keyboard in this other song, but I learned on guitar. And I think that's why I got the job, because I was able to do both. And that was kind of my first gig, and I've been playing ever since.
So you started off as a guitarist or started off as a keyboardist?
Well, I've been playing piano since I was 6. Piano was always my first love. But I started playing guitar like 12, 13, and I didn't really take lessons for guitar, but ironically, I've probably played more guitar for a living lately, the last, maybe 8 years or so. But it's usually both, and I'm a singer as well, so it always helps for backgrounds, to have a real singer, because I always find it weird when people say, if you ask them, do you sing? And they say, well, I sing backup. Well, it's like, then you're not really singing. So, I mean, if you sing, you can sing.
I got to stop making that my answer to that question.
It's all right. It's okay. We'll let you slide.
If someone is trying to sort of, make it into the music business, not, I hate to put it that way, but they should be sort of a jack of all trades, like they.
Well, I think it's either one or the other. Either you're a jack of all trades and you can kind of wear a bunch of different hats, or you're just do one thing and that's your thing. Yeah. Like, I know guitar players that are into, effects and ambient sounds and stuff like that. And if you want that for a record, you call this guy. He's going to give you the weird, swirling, kind of avant-garde, esoteric sounds, and that's his thing. He's not going to be the guy that you call to do the shred thing or the other thing. And it's like, then there's a guy who just does the shred thing. So it's like, I would either say do one or the other, like focus 100% on one thing and make that your thing, or dabble in, do a couple instruments, sing, do a couple different things, and, because sometimes one area gets dried up. It's tough.
So how did you make the transition then from sort of more of a musician into doing, producing?
Well, production is something I always did for my own music. I went to school for it at Berklee, and I've always just kind of done that on the side, and then with producing my own records, someone will say, hey, can you produce a track here or there? And a lot of it came from the songwriting as well, because you write a song and then you start doing a little demo, and sometimes the demo turns into a record, and then it's just, why redo it, that kind of stuff. I built a studio at my place about 3 years ago, and, whenever I can, I'm in there, just working on songs, writing and producing.
When you're kind of coming up with song ideas, what's that process like?
It's different every time. I'm on an airplane and I'm listening to stuff on my iPod, I'll get an idea and I just start writing, lyrics. Or sit down at the piano and come up with some melodies and stuff like that. So it really depends. I've done a lot of co-writes lately, so, it's an interesting collaborative effort where either I bring up an idea or they come in with an idea, and then we kind of open up the hood and kind of get in there and figure it out.
Do you enjoy collaborating more than writing solo? Do you find it easier?
I like collaborating with people that are bringing something to the table. Sometimes, being frank, there's a lot of young artists out there, and everybody wants to write. You have to, everybody wants to write their own songs, and sometimes they're not really strong. So you end up doing all the work, and they're just kind of sitting there. But when you write with someone else who's really creative, and you're getting that feedback and you're bouncing off each other, it's pretty great, because there's always doubt whether your song is good or your idea is good, but if you're working with someone you respect and you both agree, it's probably pretty decent.
Do you have any way of sort of like a little personal recorder for keeping track of song ideas? Like, you know, where do they start if there is typically a place they start?
I usually either just use the iPhone or an iPad or something and just throw on the voice recorder or something like that, or just throw up GarageBand, something like that. But I don't have anything else. Those little cassette things have gone away, so I don't really use those. And a lot of times if I'm in the studio room, I'll just have Pro Tools with a room mic on, and I'll just run it and, you know, let it go for an hour, and just because you never know when you're going to come up with something and you might forget it. Yeah.
So the studio that you said you opened it 3 years ago?
Well, it's not really open. I converted a garage, so it's my place, and I you know, no one else uses it but me, but you know, all my outside clients and my recordings and stuff, everybody comes over. So it's not a commercial studio in the sense that you can't rent it out unless I'm there.
Yeah.
So, but it's been great, really good.
Do you will you start tracks there and bring it to another studio?
Most of the time, I'll write and do like a template. You know, we'll pick a tempo, which we think is right, do a little loop, or maybe not even, get an acoustic track down or a piano track, you know, maybe just one instrument and a vocal. And then I'll take it to another studio for drums. I have cut drums at my place, but I like to go to other studios just because, you know, they have millions of inputs and all that. And I only run about 8 mic pre's, so I can't really do more than 8 at a time. And I don't really like, you know, I like going somewhere else for the drums and then coming back, and I do pretty much everything else at my place.
Yeah. So what was, in converting the garage, what was some of the challenges actually doing that?
Well, it wasn't really that big of a thing. You know, we didn't really like professionally treat it, but we treated it, you know, so it was kind of like, okay, well, we can put some panels up here, we can put some things there. You know, we insulated the crawl space up top on the roof, and then we kind of gauged it and put some baffles here and there. I may actually take the ceiling down, which is going to be, and if I do that, then I'll get our acoustician or someone who really knows what they're doing come in and dial it in. But it seems to be working really well for now, and a lot of times I just cut vocals right in the room right there. We have a little divider that I kind of create, but I was going to maybe like create a vocal booth, like build one, but I like the interaction with the artist, and a lot of times if I'm producing a singer, I like to, you know, be very close to them and show them, and don't have to hit a button. And as a singer, I always felt kind of weird when you stop recording, and then like the people are in the other room and they are talking, and you're like, what are they saying? Or did I suck? You know, all that stuff. So there's none of that, and I think it creates a really comfortable environment.
Would it be fair to characterize it as more of a demo studio, or do you do some finishing stuff?
We're a full, you know, HD rig studio. Okay. Yeah, it's full out. You know, we've got Neve mic pre's and Apogee converters. Use a lot of great mics, Sterling mics, Wonder mics, Neumanns, and you know, I don't really do a lot of. I'm getting more and more into the mixing, but recently I've been, you know, we'll go to another place for drums, and then we'll do everything else there, and then I'll send it out to a mixer a lot of times if the budget calls for it. But I've been doing a lot more mixing now because, you know, with technology, if you know what you're doing, you spend enough time, the rough mixes are getting really close. At least I think they are. Yeah, mine are. So.
Yeah, it seems like with the explosion of like digital home recording, it's like, what is the difference between a demo and a finished product? They all sometimes seem to kind of like become the same thing.
The gap is getting a lot smaller.
Yeah.
The gap is getting a lot smaller. I think, you know, a demo is something that you spend maybe, you know, 4 or 5 hours on, or something like that, or maybe, you know, a half a day or even a day. But to make a record, it really takes the time. You got to get in there. You got to chop things up. You really have to, you know, take some time to live with the tracks and see what's missing, what's not missing. But the gap is definitely closing. And I mean, I hear things all the time out of home studios that sound unbelievable. I think it's how much time do you want to spend on it, and you know, how good are you manipulating the technology?
Yeah, right. So, are you someone who misses the sort of analog world? Do you think that there's anything really missing, or?
I miss 4 guys in a room playing at the same time. It still happens, but it's harder and harder. And when I cut drums and bass, I usually, we'll go to another place and at least I'll have drums and bass playing at the same time, and maybe I'll play a guide acoustic track along with that. But more and more, we have already an acoustic or a piano down with a vocal, and the artist isn't even there, a lot of the times. So I do miss 4 or 5 guys in a room working out parts together as it's going down. But sonically, it's just something my ear is adjusting to as well. Just the digitalness of everything. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it. It is now. Yeah. Okay. But I grew up recording on tape. I went to Berklee during the tape era. There was no Pro Tools when I was there, and so it's a different thing. You just kind of adapt to it, and the technology's definitely made it easier and faster to work.
Are there any current projects that you're working on, you're excited about, that you want to talk about?
I'm producing a guy named Ryan Lutz, who's from New Jersey, which is actually where I'm from, Philly, South Jersey area, and he's pretty awesome. It's a good little story. My wife works for a company called the Rescue Train, which rescues dogs, and I volunteered a day of my services. They do auctions, and they asked me, hey, would you do a day with an up-and-coming artist? And so they just did an auction in New York, and someone bought the auction. And I figured it'd probably be like a trophy wife or something pretty lame, someone just paying to get their kid in, whatever. But, it was just a day, and it went to the dogs. And we have 2 dogs, huge dog lovers. And this kid, Ryan, came in the door. Unbelievable. Just a phenomenal singer, great writer, great kid. And so we've done about 4 or 5 songs now. We're working on our 4th or 5th right now, and I'm really excited about him. Worked with a new group called Crop Circle from Vegas, 3 brothers, and they're great, really cool. Kind of like, pretty hip for their age, hip for any age. They're 14, 16, and 18, and they were like, they really have a wide variety of influences, like, everybody from like Radiohead to Rob Thomas, and really cool stuff. And worked with a guy named Adam Rader and a girl named Beck Phillips. And I recently produced a song with Michelle Branch, whom I had worked with years ago in her band. So just trying to crank it out,
How do you typically get introduced to clients? Like, how do those relationships start?
A lot of it's word of mouth,
yeah.
Just referrals, and the Ryan thing was just crazy,
yeah.
So and I don't have a manager per se, but I have people that kind of look out for things, and people in the radio industry and so forth, and they kind of, maybe they're working with an artist and the artist needs new songs, and they'll call me. But it's pretty much all word of mouth. I just updated my website, jimmcgorman.com. It was like 4 years overdue, but I just really did a pretty extensive update on my site, and it's got a lot of stuff up there, clips and song examples, production examples and stuff. So I'm kind of hoping to use the net there a little more as it goes on. I don't really do any marketing right now, but I do Twitter, and it's just slowly getting into it. I don't really have a lot of time to do those updates and stuff, but I'm trying to force myself to.
It's almost required now. You have
kinda, yeah. So trying that as well.